Hey everyone, welcome to Big Flick Energy. Before I start this video, I just want to apologize for not having been too active lately. I have had a lot of work lately, it's been pretty stressful, but hey, guess what? Now I have time, now I'm good. So, recently we just got the first episode of Moon Knight, which is why I wanted to make this video. So with Moon Knight's pilot episode premiering yesterday, a lot of people are already talking about how he will affect the future of the MCU. Unlike the other shows thus far, which are all based on established MCU characters, Moon Knight tells of a new MCU hero who will definitely delve into the mystical side of the MCU. Because of this, it only makes sense for him to run into some of the other mystical/magical characters in the MCU, but the question is who? Well, at the end of Eternals, we may have gotten our answer as we see Kit Harington's character pick up a sword, which will eventually result in him becoming the Black Knight as his character is in the comics. However, we hear a voice which has been confirmed to be that of Mahershala Ali's Blade. Now, Blade is a character famous for killing vampires and has commonly been a member of a Marvel Comics team known as the Midnight Suns. This is where I expect Moon Knight to join in, but before I get there, let me delve into how I see this team to most likely take form. You see, there are a couple of connections of vampires to the characters I expect to be in this Midnight Suns team, starting with Black Knight. The sword he pulled is known as the Ebony Blade, a blade created by his ancestor Percy of Sandia, and the Arthurian sorcerer Merlin, known to be able to kill vampires. Marvel hasn't gone into the role of the Arthurian age yet, at all, but the end of Eternals alludes to us learning a lot more in the near future, especially in terms of vampires. Morgan Le Fay, who was an apprentice under Merlin, indirectly created Marvel's first vampire, as she created the Darkhold, the book seen in WandaVision. Given the Darkhold plays an important role in the story of vampires, don't be surprised if Agatha Harkness joins in on this team as well. I know it sounds strange given she was the main antagonist in WandaVision, but hear me out. First off, she's not always portrayed as a villain in the comics. She could easily be set up as more of an anti-hero, which I do think is where she's headed, given she is getting her own show called Agatha House of Harkness. I expect this to be similar to Loki, where she's a villain that grows into something else through the show. Although I'm not sure how I feel about her becoming a protagonist, I'm willing to give it a chance to see how she impacts a team like the Midnight Suns, considering she probably has the most knowledge on the history of how these vampires started and all of that. Now back to Morgan Le Fay. She created the Darkhold using the scrolls of Chthon, a character we did have mentioned to us in WandaVision when Agatha told Wanda she's using chaos magic, as Cathon is the god of chaos. Something similar to what Ethan Hawke's character told Moon Knight in one of the Moon Knight trailers, where he said there is chaos in him. I mean, Marvel literally just posted something on Instagram while I was making this video about Moon Knight captioned, "Chaos is here." Now this could merely be a coincidence, but I do believe this is a hint that Moon Knight will join this team as well. This seems like a team more reminiscent of Universal monsters like Frankenstein and Dracula and Wolfman than just flat out sorcerers. And Moon Knight is a character who fights a werewolf-like or jackal-like creature in one of the trailers, and doesn't really fit well into any of the other teams in the MCU as of now, so Midnight Suns seems like where he's heading. Speaking of werewolves, Marvel is creating a Werewolf by Night Halloween special, which is projected to come out Halloween 2022. Honestly, I think this character will also join this Midnight Suns team as sort of like the Hulk of the roster. Also, it really does make sense to have a werewolf help take on an army of vampires. Blade will evidently be the leader of this team, and we know there's a reason why he's already recruiting characters, starting with Black Knight. So he will most likely lead the team against one or more of the following foes. First up, we have Morgan Le Fay. With her having connections to Black Knight through the Arthurian past, connections to Agatha Harkness through sorcery and the Darkhold, and connections to Blade through helping create the verse of vampires, she seems like a favorite to be an antagonist for this film. Even if she isn't the main antagonist, her presence will be felt in some way by perhaps having her try to bring Cathon to enact chaos on the world, or by bringing about a new age of vampires, or maybe even just being a history lesson in the film, but she will have her presence felt. For the case of Cathon, although I do think this would be extremely interesting to see, I do think he's a bit too overpowered for the team created and is more likely to be brought in a later project, including Wanda's the Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange, and not in the first Midnight Suns project, even though this is probably the character that makes the most sense of why Moon Knight would join the team. I also think if you do the story of Morgan Le Fay bringing Cathon to Earth, it's kind of similar to what happened in Doctor Strange, with Dormammu being brought by another character. so I don't think they'll repeat that. Instead, the film will more likely delve into the vampires of the world, where perhaps we will see our heroes need to face the first vampire in Varnae, who was created by the Darkhold, or the king of vampires in Dracula, who has always been Blade's main antagonist. But the only problem with Dracula is I'm not really sure how the rights for the character works. So I think Varnae is more likely, but if they can get Dracula, I think they'll definitely do him. Now, I realize the team I mentioned is small, but these are only my surefire picks for the team. There are some other characters I would not be surprised to see join the team, starting with Cersei. Although she does not have anything to go for her in the mystical space of Marvel, she has lived for 5,000 years, so I'm sure she has at least some knowledge of vampires or Morgan Le Fay, and is also dating Black Knight. So once she finishes up her story in Eternals 2, which is projected to come out late 2024 or 2025, I'd be surprised if she doesn't go to help her boyfriend take on some vampires. Also, Marvel is moving towards having more female-dominant teams, so having a Midnight Suns team with only one female doesn't make sense in terms of marketing purposes for them. Knowing Marvel, they'll want to add another female to this team. I feel like Eternals didn't perform as well as they would have hoped. They'll want to close out the story with maybe one more film. If it doesn't go well, they'll close off the Eternal story, but they'll still keep some of the main characters like Druid and Sersi, and they can easily insert Cersei into this team. I could also see Ghost Rider joining the team, given he's almost always a member of the team, and people would be mad if he isn't part of it. But I think he would be better suited to come in a sequel that delves more into, I have to say it, Mephisto.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Than he would be for a film about vampires. I think it's the same thing for Damon Hellstrom, who's typically a member of the team, but I think they'll want to save one or both of these characters for that sequel, which goes more into characters like Mephisto. Now, I do think that they could introduce Ghost Rider in a post-credit scene. I would not be surprised about that, and I would honestly love to see it. There are rumors that he may show up in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Maybe they set him up there, and then at the end of Midnight Suns, they tease him. So we'll see what they end up doing with this character. Now, I could also see a character like Magik from New Mutants, or Morbius from, well, Morbius, popping up because they're established characters and they can easily just join in through the multiverse. But the problem is New Mutants didn't perform well at all. Morbius just opened up with a pretty atrocious score. So even though I'm going to see it this weekend, neither one has performed too well at all. And they're both made fun of for having way too many delays for their own good. So this is definitely not the most likely scenario, even though they are two characters I could see being in the team. Ultimately though, I expect us to see a team of Blade, Black Knight, Moon Knight, Werewolf by Night, Agatha Harkness, and maybe Sersi and Ghost Rider pop up as the Midnight Suns in the MCU. Moon Knight just started, and there are so many places the show could go to set this up that would get a lot of people hyped for this darker side of Marvel. And I'm just really excited to see what they end up doing with it. I hope you guys are excited to see what happens with Midnight Suns, what happens with Moon Knight, what happens with Blade. So let me know down below what you guys think about this team joining the MCU. If you think this is going to be the team, please like and subscribe. Please push the bell notification. Thanks so much for watching this video, and see you next time on Big Flick Energy.